going on, YouTube? rdapdan here. Hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. Today, we have the honors of speaking to a nice young lady who actually spent time in the feds, is now out. She's gone a little bit through halfway house. She's currently on home confinement, and she has agreed to come on and talk a little bit about her story, from everything from kind of what she was doing before she got into trouble, what led her into trouble, what she felt like when she got into trouble, what her process was going through prison, and things she wished she had done differently prior to going into prison. Not necessarily different, not getting into trouble, but from the point she got into trouble, what could she have done differently to make her time a little bit easier? She also had a co-conspirator. Her husband is also serving time in federal prison right now, and we're just going to talk to her a little bit. So I'd like to say hi. How you doing, Brenda?
Good, thanks.
So, Brenda, I get a lot of questions from women that potentially are going to be going to federal prison, and it's hard for me to speak on that because I've never actually spent time in a women's prison. But a lot of the questions that they have seem to just be real concerning of what it's like, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you were doing that kind of led you to get into trouble to begin with?
Sure. I've always been in the clerical field, bookkeeping and accounting, and I actually worked for a company, a biodiesel company that made fuel, and I claimed tax credits through the IRS. The fuel that was made didn't meet the standard that the IRS and the EPA required, and so that's how I got involved in all of this.
So what was the actual crime they charged you with?
I was charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, basically, I think is what it said.
So were you guys falsifying documents or forging documents to make the fuel look like it was cleaner than it really was?
There was some of that happened. I think that, I think some of that was involved in it, yes.
How many people were wrapped up in your conspiracy?
4.
4 of you. And I know your husband, Dean, he also was part of this, and he was also sent to prison, correct?
Yes.
And what was his sentence?
63 months.
63 months. And your sentence was how long?
A year and a day.
A year and a day. So where did you end up doing your time at?
Coleman, Florida.
And that would have been the camp, correct?
That's right.
And for those of you that don't know, Coleman has a camp, a low, a medium, and 2 pens. So when you found out that you were going to get in trouble, how did you find out that it was all kind of coming to an end?
Well, it started out a few different ways. The first thing was the company, had the documents. They sent a list of things that they wanted from us to review. And then after that, we received target letters. That was a scary day when we got that. That's basically a letter that's telling you that you're under investigation by the federal government. And not long after we got those letters, because I did have a home office and did some work out of my home, they came to my house. And that was when I knew this was not going good.
When they showed up at your house, was it like they made an appointment, they knocked on your door, they let your attorney know, or was it you were just hanging out at the house and...
I was hanging out at the house, and they came, and they didn't bust down doors, they didn't have guns, it wasn't anything like that, but there was probably 16 of them, and they made their presence very well known in the whole neighborhood. But yeah, they came unannounced and didn't just go through my home office. Obviously, when they come to your house, they have to go through every single thing in your home.
I'm assuming they had a search warrant. So did they confiscate computers, phones, other things like that from your house?
They took, they didn't have to take computers. They have stuff that they take all the information off of your computer. But they just took paperwork. They took boxes of paperwork is all they took.
And when this all happened, did you guys already have an attorney hired?
Yes.
And you had no idea they were coming. So I guess they didn't really tip off your attorney at all.
No, they didn't. No.
So they came, and then what? I'm assuming you got on the phone, called your attorney, told them they just came to your house and kind of went through everything.
Right. That's when the whole process started. The thing is nothing went quick for us. This was 2 years of, waiting and wondering. And to me, those years of not knowing what's coming next, or, I didn't know if the next knock on the door was going to be, I was under arrest. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And to me, that was worse than doing my time. Having that black cloud hanging over me all the time and not knowing what was going to happen, or how long if I went to prison, how long it was even going to be. It was, that was a difficult time. And not to mention the fact that they were in my house kind of set a little paranoia in me. I didn't know, did they bug my house? Are they listening to my phone calls? All those different kinds of things.
So a lot of the unknown, which I think I went through the same thing, just waiting for everything to come to an end. That's really probably the hardest part. For all intents and purposes, I would consider you and Dean, you consider yourselves white collar criminals, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
The reason why I bring that up is there seems to be a lot of misconception with what goes on with white collar criminals and non-white collar criminals that are potentially going into federal prison. And from what I've learned from my experience of going through it, being I was not considered a white collar criminal, my crime was considered a drug crime. I feel like there's not a whole lot of a difference between a white collar criminal and a regular, let's say you're in there for drugs or guns or anything else. When you're facing time and you haven't been to prison, you don't really know what to expect. Your questions aren't really concerning of the white collar nature of what people think. It's more of what's next? What is prison like? What do I need to do? How long am I going to go for? What, all of these questions. So what questions would you say were the biggest ones going through your mind? And when did it become real to you that you were actually facing prison time?
Yeah, you're right. We all have the same questions. It doesn't matter what your crime is, you want to know. And I think for me, some of the things I wanted to know was, one of the big things was, am I going to feel safe? Am I always going to, be on guard or feel like I'm threatened in some way? And fortunately, I never, ever felt unsafe in prison. I never felt intimidated by anybody. I didn't, that was a big plus for me. The other thing was, and for women watching, they're going to want to know this as well, is the privacy issue. Like, showers and bathrooms and things, completely private. You don't have anything to worry about as far as that goes. But, all those little things play into your mind. How are you going to live? How comfortable is it going to be? That kind of thing. That's what I wondered. Those were my big things.
Privacy. Okay.
Yeah. That's a big one for women. You guys probably don't. You're like, whatever, but we want to know. Is there a door on that shower?
Were there doors or were they curtains?
Well, at Coleman, it's doors.
Okay. So you had actual doors on the showers, and the showers were they pretty clean? Was the water hot? Was the water cold?
No, the showers aren't there. No, they're not clean. The water is not always hot. You figure out what times, if you want a hot shower, you figure out the best time to go and get it. But no, the showers aren't that great.
Let's take a step backward a little bit. So you got to self-surrender, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Did you and Dean both self-surrender the same day?
No, he actually went in a week before I did.
Did you bring him to because he didn't go to Coleman. Where did he end up going?
He's in Georgia, in Jessup, and I brought him. Yeah, I brought him.
So you got to kind of feel the experience of what it's like making that drive where it feels like, why I'm really turning myself into prison and I'm making that surreal drive. What was that moment like when you were driving Dean, knowing that you were going to be doing this a week later?
Yeah. Well, by the time I got to that point, I was so ready to go. And I know that sounds strange, but when you go through years of not knowing, to me, that first day was the beginning of the end for me. So I was finally able to step in and start this whole thing that's, and get the process going. I didn't want to go to prison, but I wanted to get it over with. So all of it, I just tried to keep my mind positive and focused and thinking, there's an end to this now, and looking at that date.
So self-surrendering, bringing yourself to prison, what would you suggest to a female or male that's going to be self-surrendering into prison? What are some things that you can bring with you, or you wish you had brought with you? Maybe you didn't think you could bring that. What are some items that you would bring with you, or you would suggest for somebody else to take with them self-surrendering?
Mm-hmm. One of my biggest things that I tell everybody is put money on your books before you go in. If you're self-surrendering, you have that opportunity in that time. And I think I read somewhere, and I've heard other people say that they were told that they could not do that. If you were sentenced and you have your number, you go on MoneyGram and put that money in. I put mine in a week before I even got there, because that day that you get there, you can go to commissary. And it's huge, because there's things you're going to need and you want right away. And, I had a lot of people tell me that they came in with cash. Well, they can't just take your cash and apply it to your account immediately. There's a process that it has to go through. It can take days or a week or whatever. Put money on your account. That's the main thing. And as far as what you can bring, I called before I went in, and I asked them, I called R&D and asked them, what is it? Can I bring my own shoes? What is it? And she said, there's nothing. You can bring, you can have a necklace that is got, a religious, like a cross or whatever on it. I think it has to be valued under $100. A wedding band, it has to be plain, no stones in it. And your Bible. Glasses, that's another thing you can bring, but there's not a stitch of clothing that you'll have that you can bring in there, or anything else.
What about documents such as like your driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, things like that?
You can bring that, and I don't know about other prisons, but our prison, Coleman, was so unorganized and lost so many things. I'm thankful that when I got in there, I asked them, I thought I was supposed to bring my driver's license and social security card. And she said, you don't have to do it. And so I sent mine back, but I heard a lot of people say that they lost it, that they don't know where it was at, or, wasn't in their file when they went to get it. So I don't know. I mean, I can't give advice to other people about that, but for me, I was glad that I didn't. There was no reason for them to have it.
Your case manager never asked you if you guys had your birth certificates and social security cards when they were preparing you for your halfway house?
She asked if we had it, but I didn't have to have it on the file.
Gotcha. Because I was also at Coleman. For those of you that haven't followed up on my own story, I was at Coleman Low, and Coleman Low was real big on making sure that, and I guess it could be specific to case managers and what they want to do, but my case manager was real big on wanting social security card, driver's license, and birth certificate in your file before he even started working on your halfway house packet. So if you're not going to bring it to prison with you, and I completely agree with what Brenda says, is it's very easy to get lost or lost in translation. Definitely make sure you have those items somewhere secured at home. A lot of people don't know where their birth certificate is or the social security card is, and then they think they're just going to go through the process once they get to prison. You're going to find out that trying to get things done from inside prison is not necessarily super easy. So if you can take care of those things now, getting all those documents prepared, hand them off to a power of attorney or somebody that's going to be handling your finances and your circumstances, definitely have that information. When did you self-surrender, Brenda? What was the date again?
October 20th, 2015. My birthday.
That was you surrendered on your birthday.
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. I was actually released 3 days after you self-surrendered. So that's the revolving door, literally right there, one person in, one person out. And she still finishes all of this before me.
Yeah.
So congratulations on getting ready to wrap it up. So you were in Coleman camp. You self-surrendered October 20th, 2015. How long did you actually spend at Coleman?
Less than 8 months. I think it was like 7.5 months is what I ended up doing on a year and a day sentence.
So 8.5 months. So you first walk in. What is the first thing? What was your first day like at Coleman?
Long. It was really long because I was in R&D for, I self-surrendered in the morning. I think I was there like 9:30, and I don't think I got out of R&D until 3 o'clock. It just, they take their time. You sit there and wait for your counselor to come, or you wait to go to medical, and it's just, they don't rush you through by any means.
Were you in R&D with a lot of other people waiting that also self-surrendered the same day?
Actually, I was the only one that day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So once you finished R&D, did they bring you right to the housing unit that you were going to be in for the next 8 months?
The lady that was in R&D that day was not normally in there. I don't know if she was just covering for somebody, but she didn't really know what was going on. I know that at Coleman, they have, they call big sisters, I think is what they call them. And they come in and they'll take the new people and bring them around and show them all the different things and show them where their unit is. And I didn't have that because I don't know if the lady just didn't know about it or what it was. She just pretty much opened the door and said, that way's your unit and this is your room number. So, but fortunately, and I think this is the norm in most women's camp anyway, is, there's so many people there that want to help you and want to show you. And the one thing that we all have in common is that we all had our first day and we all know how it feels. And so there's a lot of women there that were just really kind and compassionate, wanted to help me and show me. And so it all worked out okay.
So that's really good to know that. So those of you that are getting ready to go, clearly there's going to be a lot of support. And when she says a lot of people willing to help, sounds like you're talking about other inmates more so than staff members. When you got to the unit, was it cells? Was it dorms? Was it cubicles? What was the setup like? Was there bunk beds? How many people to a room? Things like that.
Yeah, it's just cubes, and they're just 2 to a room, 1 bunk bed. And each unit at Coleman anyway, I think it's around 100 per unit, and there's 4 units there. And and back to the women, how much they want to help. Every person, when your first day, people just start to swarm you with giving you different items. It might be shampoo or soap or, shower shoes or whatever, but they overwhelm you with giving you things. And it happens with every new person. People want to help out. Again, it goes back to they know how they felt their first day. But one thing that I would recommend, even though people are very giving, is that I think there's a commissary sheet that you can print off, actually. You might be able to find it online. I would look it over before you go in, because your first day when you go to commissary, you're already overwhelmed. There's so many different things playing in your mind. And I would look it over and kind of like map out what it is that you need to get. I think you can only spend $80 a week. And right off the bat, the first few weeks especially, that money can go quickly. I mean, there's a lot of things you want, and, just having a pair of tennis shoes or, a sweatshirt, all those things are very expensive. You think prison, it wouldn't be expensive. It's expensive. My mistake was my first day, I was so nervous and I didn't know what I wanted. I just looked at the things I knew I was going to need: toothpaste, toothbrush, all of those things. And I neglected to get any snacks. And I was sorry for that, because, you eat at 4:30 and come 9 o'clock at night, you're hungry. So, I'd look it over and think think it through when you have a clearer mind and you're not overwhelmed with your first day in prison.
Some of the other questions are a little more on the gritty side. I know people hear a lot of horror stories about women specifically in prison. I know you don't just have female guards. You've also got male COs, correct?
Right.
So some of the questions that I've gotten are, is there any crazy relationships going on between the COs and the inmates? And that's a two-part question. One, is it willing participants that engage in these relationships with COs, or does it even happen? Or is there situations where women are forced to do different things in order to be able to do or have more privacy or luxury that they may want?
Right. And that was another one of my fears I worried about. There are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. There are a lot of officers, having sex with inmates. And I'm sure that happens in every single prison, but they're always willing. There's never, they're not forcing any women to do anything they don't want to do. I don't think that they could. In the environment we're in, we're always around other people. You're always in a group. So I've never felt that way, and I've never seen that. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but again, I've always felt safe. But I do know that there was a lot of that going on willingly.
So you have to have a job when you're in a camp. What do they have you doing?
I was very fortunate to get a job right away that normally when you first get there, you have to do either kitchen duty or go to the lawn maintenance. And when I got there, some girl came up to me and told me, like, this was the second day I was there. She said, I know where you can work. There's a lady that, or the head psychologist that's looking for a clerk. And so I kind of pushed it off and thought, God, I just got here. Give me a little bit of time. I haven't even gone through A&O yet. It actually ended up taking them a month before I went through A&O. But after a couple days, I thought about it and I thought, I'll just give it a shot. I didn't realize I was going to have to go to either lawn or into the kitchen. So I went and I applied for the job and I got interviewed, and she told me as soon as I went through A&O that she would hire me on. And I didn't realize how fortunate I was until after time went on and I saw, when you first get there, the kind of jobs that you have to do. But I worked in a psychology library, and I basically I made books for her, did copies. I cleaned her office and her bathroom, just things like that.
So you had a pretty decent job indoors, which is very rare for what I've seen women at the camps. Being that you had a pretty decent job, did it pay decent?
No. I'm trying to remember how much I make. It was like I didn't even register to me because I'm just like, every month I made like $30 or something. So I don't even know what it was an hour that I made. I think it was like 29 cents or something. 39.
So if you have a job in prison and you're making $20 to $30 a month, that doesn't really leave you a whole lot, especially when you're trying to order a commissary. What was a typical spend? Now I know initially it's pretty expensive because you got to get your shoes and all the MP3 players and whatnot. But once you're on a regular spending routine, what would you say is very easy to spend on a weekly basis?
Actually, I spent, after I got all those high dollar items, I ended up spending around $25 to $30 a week. More around $25 a week just to get some snacks and things like that. I didn't, but I mean, you got to remember it takes a while to get there because if you want good shampoo and good conditioner, those are like $9 each, and then a sweatshirt. I recommend getting a sweatshirt right away. Every place you go is cold, even if it's 150 degrees outside, it's freezing inside. But, like you were saying, the tennis shoes, they're expensive, $60. So it takes a while to get to the point where you get all the things that you need. and then just buy your little snacks.
What kind of activities was there to do, from education to exercise to what did you do when you weren't working?
Yeah, so there's a track. That was one of my favorite things to do. And at Coleman, it's a beautiful place, big oak trees all around. So I really enjoyed going out and walking the track. I like to play racquetball. There was a small little wellness center that had videos where you could do anything from yoga to Zumba to just aerobic kind of exercises. They had some bikes in there, just the stationary bikes, and I think a treadmill and a stair climber. So, there are different things. It's not like state of the art kind of stuff. Some of it's older, but the point is that you can get out and do things. There's a small library there. And as far as education goes, the inmates teach the classes, and they're just, basic kind of classes. I took a Spanish class. I took a public speaking class. I took a typing class. I knew how to type, but just for the fun of it, I did that. And then I also did a correspondence course, and I got my paralegal certificate while I was in there. So it was something that I did on my own, but you can take correspondence courses while you're in there too. You get approval through education. And so.
Did you have to pay for any of these courses out of your own pocket, or was this all on the BOP's dime?
Everything except for my correspondence course, the paralegal, I paid for on my own.
So the paralegal course is the only thing you paid for on your own. Everything else was free?
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. When did you get released to the halfway house?
On June 3rd or June 2nd.
June 2nd. Okay. So you got released to the halfway house just a few months ago. Okay. So June 2nd, you got to the halfway house. Which halfway house did you go to?
Fort Myers.
And what was your first day at the halfway house like?
My first day at the halfway house actually was more stressful than my first day in prison. I handled prison better. When I got to the halfway house, it took me a few days to really settle in. When you get there, it's a strange feeling to be in an environment like that with men, and especially since you haven't been around men for a long period of time, and then to be put in a place where you're with a bunch of men who are criminals. That doesn't help. But it took me a few days, and I think it was more just a matter of getting to know the people that are in there and understanding that I was safe there as well. But it seemed like being in Coleman was easier than being in the halfway house, to be honest.
And did the halfway house have programs and tracks and exercise bikes and things to do, libraries, things like that?
None of the above. They did have outside on the patio, which you only get certain times that you can go out to the patio. A couple times a day, they give you an opportunity to sit outside. But they had a workout bench, I think is more along the lines for men for lifting weights. And that was the only thing they had. Most of my day was spent inside until you get a job. Once you get a job and can get out of there, you just work as much as you can to not have to sit inside there, because there is nothing to do in there.
So when you're there and you get there and your family might want to come see you, or you might want to, go out to dinner with your kids, how does that work?
Yeah, you don't have that freedom yet. And the best way to look at it is you're still in prison, but you're in a halfway house. You still, you're still confined pretty much. You don't have that freedom yet. You can't just go when you want to go. There are some passes that you're allowed to get, and where I'm at, I don't know if it's the same everywhere. I have one social pass a month, which is a 4-hour pass. And then I get one shopping pass a month, which is a 2-hour pass to go shopping. You can go get your hair done, get a pass for that. You can go to church and get a pass for that. But you can't just go out to dinner with friends or go meet people or go to anybody's house or anything like that. It's a little stricter.
Did you have smartphones in your halfway house?
No, we were not allowed to have a smartphone. It had to be just one of those old time flip phones, had to have the camera disabled and no internet ability on the phone.
And I know that's something that they're slowly opening up through the BOP does not require that. That's pertained to each halfway house kind of gets to write their own policy based on what the actual allotments are. BOP does provide, or doesn't provide, they allow smartphones. So now, when you got there, you were already home confinement eligible, correct?
No, I wasn't. I had 2 months.
Oh, that's right, because you served it. Your sentence was a year.
Right. So I had 2 months that I had to do at the halfway house before my home confinement date came. And when it came, I ended up spending almost another 2 weeks there because they just didn't get around to doing my paperwork. So
yeah, it's unfortunate. They don't move fast. And basically, guys, if you're wondering how the home confinement date is calculated, your home confinement date is basically 10% of your sentence. So whatever amount of time you're sentenced to, you're allowed to do 10% of that time on home confinement. Doesn't mean you're going to get the full 10%. That's just when your actual day comes available to where you can go to home confinement. So my sentence was 42 months. I was given 11 months halfway house. I was only allowed to do roughly 4 months of that I'm allowed to do on home confinement. So you got your home confinement. What is probably the biggest weird thing about being on home confinement?
Being alone. That's one of the things I couldn't wait for, just to be able to be alone for a while. But I guess just being here, it feels weird being home and not just being able to walk out the door and go do what you want to do. You have to every once in a while kind of bring myself back. I think I need to run to the grocery store or whatever. And then I kind of bring myself back to reality and realize I don't have that freedom.
What if you did run to the store? How would they know?
Well, I have an ankle monitor on and it would start to vibrate. So that would remind me right away. But I guess that would notify them that I was out of my boundaries.
So you're not only are you in home confinement, but you're also wearing a ankle monitor, which is it GPS or is it connected to your home?
It's GPS.
So when you do get to go out on a pass, if you're supposed to go get your hair done, they know exactly where you are while you're there. So it's not like you can say you're going to do your hair and go see your kids. They know exactly where you are 24/7.
That's right. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to do home confinement for a long period of time because, there is a little bit more freedom or leeway there when you're in a halfway house and you go on a pass. But when you go on a pass from home confinement, you're bound to do exactly what you said you were going to do.
So right now, you and I are both on home confinement. We're both, I'm at my office right now at work, and I had to get permission to come to work. But the difference is she's wearing an ankle monitor. The feds also have a new program now called Guardian, and it's an app on your phone, and I'm looking for it here, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. This is the alternative to the ankle monitor, which from my understanding, in the next few months, this is going to be pretty much mandatory for anybody that is not a risk that is doing what they're supposed to do. So you guys do have this to look forward to. So here's my phone. If you see right underneath the 7-Eleven app there's an app that says Guardian. So what happens is every so often, this will pop up on your screen. And right now it says voluntary check-in. That's me if I wanted to voluntary check-in. And if I wanted to do that, and I'll show you, and it actually says I missed a check-in there. I didn't even hear it. So if I press voluntary check-in, so the screen pops up with some numbers on the bottom of the screen. And when you're recording your face, you have to read the numbers off the bottom of the screen. That's how they know where you are, and it's really you. So it does voice recognition and face recognition. So that's the app, and then it says check-in complete, and it submits that GPS coordinate back to the halfway house. The ankle monitor you're wearing is not small, is it? It's about the size of a good, probably bigger than this mouse right here.
Yeah, it is.
I would, I would ask to see it, but that's,
It's not comfortable at all.
you could take a picture and maybe we'll post it
There
up
you
so you don't have
go.
to,
Okay.
show your flexibility there.
Right.
So yeah, so you're on house arrest or home confinement. And when does that finish?
Friday. So I have just less than a week now.
So Friday, do you have to go in or do you just get to take scissors and rip that thing off? And
No, I have to go in. I'm sure there's probably, you got to sign paperwork, whatever, but yeah.
so you finish your home confinement Friday, and what's next after that?
So then I have probation, which is 3 years probation. I hope to get off in a year and a half, whatever. And then that's it.
Have you spoken to your probation officer about what needs to happen in order to get off of house arrest or probation early?
I haven't had that opportunity to really ask him about that yet.
Okay. So from what I understand, because Shelly, my girlfriend, who was also at Coleman Camp, she's on, she just finished probation. She's actually done with everything, but probation, there's like a color line where you have to call every single day. And if you hear your color, that's how you know you have to go in and do your drug testing and your UA and whatnot. How did you come about finding me, and what is it that you find useful from watching some of my videos and beyond that?
Sure. Well, first of all, my husband is wanting to go into the Rdap program, and now he's having a difficult time because we didn't hire somebody ahead of time that gave us the kind of advice that we needed. Somebody like you, a consultant, could have gave us. It would have made everything so much easier right now. So he's having a hard time trying to get into this program. But I looked up on YouTube Rdap, and you came up, and that's how I found you. I wish that we would have done that before he went in. All the information, our attorneys mentioned nothing about Rdap. They actually mentioned nothing about prison itself. The only thing they focused on was the legal matter at that time. There was no preparation in any way, nothing talking about, what we needed to do to maybe get more halfway house time. None of that was ever discussed, and I don't think they really knew. So, it's unfortunate that we didn't know that ahead of time or know to hire somebody ahead of time to make this process easier. But we'll see now.
And it sounds like from when we first spoke, one of the biggest struggles that you guys had come across was because you probably just didn't know about, consultants or prison coaches prior ahead of time, but was when you guys went for your, when you did your PSR, the pre-sentence report investigation. From what I understand, what I read, that there wasn't a whole lot of talk on the PSR about addictive personality, drug abuse, which drug he liked to use on a regular basis. And as you came to find out after the fact, the PSR is pretty much your ticket into Rdap if it's done correctly. And basically your PSR is very clear. It needs to state that you have some sort of substance abuse 12 months prior to the date of arrest. And when I say substance abuse, it doesn't mean you have to be addicted to crack or you're on heroin or meth. That could mean you drink on a regular basis, you take prescription pills on a regular basis, and it could be prescription pills that you're supposed to be taking. You can actually have a prescription from the doctor that you're taking on a regular basis, and if it's for some sort of a narcotic, whether it be pain or Xanax, anything like that, that is something that you can use. But why do you think during the time of the PSR interview, Brenda, why do you think you or your husband doesn't fully either disclose, or what prevents you guys from just really opening up on any type of regularity for any type of substance use?
Well, for us personally, we felt like the judge would see that, and that would influence how much time we got, So, you kind of are a little more guarded, and you want to paint a real pretty picture of your life rather than put out there any kind of dirty laundry, thinking it's going to just come back to you and give you more time.
Do you have any final last words on what you would like to say to any young ladies out there who are getting ready to go into the system for their first time? Anything to ease their mind? Some final words from you?
Sure. You know, I think that it is overwhelming. It is terrifying, obviously, to go to prison. There's no doubt about that. And your first couple of weeks are very difficult, but it does get better, and you're going to be safe and you'll be okay. I think a few things to remember is, number one, don't go in there and start complaining. You'll, there's a lot of people there who have done a lot of time. My bunkie was there for 16 months. And the one thing that I always try to remember is I've got a short time. And the last thing anybody wants to hear is when you just got there and you've been on the outside 2 weeks ago, how desperately you want, an Outback steak. Well, you could have just ate one. I've been here 10 years, so don't complain. Just don't complain right off the bat about things. The other thing that I would say is when people give you advice, like something as simple as your laundry bag's going to come untied, you didn't tie it right, don't get an attitude about it. I've seen so many people try to help somebody and they get this defensive attitude, like don't tell me what to do kind of thing. Once you do that, people will not help you. They'll see you do something wrong. Can be something you think as simple as wearing your nightgown at 4 o'clock count, which will get you written up right away. They're not going to tell you anymore. So take the advice graciously. And one other thing that I think is important is when you get in, don't cling to one or two people. Because you feel overwhelmed, I think your tendency is to, let somebody take you under their wing and show you the ropes. For me, what worked best was to stand back and observe people for a period of time. Who you might think right away is really kind and considerate, and they might be anyway. They might have a bad reputation for, being a snitch or a drama queen or owing people money, and then you're associated with that person. When you live with people 24/7, you can't go home, shut the door, and not answer the phone. You're there with them. So you got to go through a process when you have kind of put your arm around somebody and clung to them. You got to go through kind of a breakup process. So just be observant for a while. You can get through it, and you can ask several people. You can walk the track with one person one day and walk it with somebody else the next, and just take your time to get to know people.
I think that's awesome advice. And I think anybody that's watching this video right now that's getting ready to go to federal prison, females or males even, I think everything you just went over from the beginning to end, I think is really going to help people realize that it's not the end of the world, that immediate relief probably punches you in the face the minute you get to prison. There's going to be an overwhelming sense of the weights lifted off your shoulders. So I think you couldn't have given better advice. I'm really happy that you agreed to do this with me today. I apologize for looking so short. My my camera's up really high. But thank you very much, Brenda, for coming on. If you ever want to come on and you have any other insight, I would love to have you on again in a couple of months, see how probation's going, and just kind of revisit your situation and see how it is to be back out there leaving the house when you want to.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, guys, I'm rdapdan, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so at this point. Before you go anywhere else, go ahead and subscribe, like my video, share my video, and if you have a story you want to share, put it in the comments, and maybe we'll get you on here next. All right, guys, have a great day. rdapdan.